Hi everyone, it's Raina. So this video is if you have your sun in Leo and your moon in Scorpio. I just got a request for this and I for sure thought I had already done this. I'm actually quite surprised I hadn't. And I looked it up and nope, I probably have done the reversed version. I'll have to check that out too. I won't lie, I think this is a difficult combination. I do feel that Leo people in general tend to exude a lot of warmth, have a generous nature, but because the moon is in Scorpio and because Leo and Scorpio clash, they form a square. I'm just talking about in general, not specifically with each individual. You would have to see the degrees of your sun and moon to see if they officially square off. But in general, that is a difficult energy or energetic combination. But the moon in Scorpio in and of itself is a complicated emotional nature, and that makes the person do things, feel things in a very intense way. The sun is the aspirational self, and I'm sure most people know that Leo is a very proud sign. And pride is something that we are told is an egotistical trait. It's bad. I disagree completely. I think that we have to have a sense of pride in ourselves. And when we do not, that's when the negative behaviors arise because the person feels insecure. But it's a slippery slope because Leo can easily veer into the category of arrogant if they're not careful and if they do have a tendency towards a negative self-concept. Leo is a fixed fire sign and Scorpio is a fixed water sign. So you can see a double fixed sign is going to be quite obstinate. And this is problematic because that means they are stubborn as F. And that makes them not very cooperative when it comes to other people. It's like a willful personality. And willfulness is very difficult for other people to contend with because sometimes we need to ask others to accommodate us for one reason or the other. And somebody who's a double fixed sign, they may not be nasty about it, but they still may make up excuses. And basically, it's their comfort zone is whatever it is that they want to do. So if you have this combination, I want you to reflect on that. Do you find it hard to be flexible? And this also applies to life itself. If life throws you a curveball, can you kind of easily rebound, or do you tend to get all weirded out about things not going your way? Do you tend to follow a schedule religiously to the point where you're very anal about your routines? And because it makes you feel safe. And if you come from a dysfunctional family, and of course, I always joke that, which family is not dysfunctional, but you know what I mean, the ones that truly are. If you have Pluto in the first house, fourth house, 12th house, maybe eighth house, there are so many variables. But if you come from that environment, or like if you have Neptune in the first or the fourth house in particular, you may feel this sense of needing to kind of stave off any imagined chaos by being very rigid about your daily routine, your daily schedule, And this makes you feel safe if you have Saturn in the 6th house. This is another example. And the problem is that's fine. I mean, if you're organized in that way, but if you take it to the extreme, you can find it, I was going to say extremely hard to be spontaneous in life. And so there tends to be that controlling behavior that is kind of underneath the surface of, lurking underneath everything that you do and in your interactions with other people. And other people can sense that, even if they can't put their finger on it. People do not like it when they feel micromanaged by others. And if you're like somebody in a position of authority, you may find it hard to let your underlings do their thing. You always have to kind of be hands-on, and that can create a lot of problems for you as a supervisor because other people will resent it. So your employees will feel like you don't trust them to do the right thing, that you don't, like you don't have faith in them. And if this is about your partner, same deal. Your child, obviously, you're going to have to give freedom out little by little. You're not going to give a 2-year-old the same kind of freedom that you would give a teenager. But that kind of overly controlling nature will be your downfall if you don't watch out. Leo can be the petty tyrant when it feels out of control in its own sense of self. So definitely keep tabs on that. See how you tend to want that kind of guarantee in life. It's really funny when I do private readings. I don't get this too much anymore, but I did for a while. And I do occasionally, where I would get somebody who would order a reading, and then they would, send me their info, their birth data, and then they would say, okay, I have these questions, and they'd have a laundry list of these questions. Yes, no questions, even though I say on my website, I don't answer yes, no questions. I don't play fortune teller. If people want to discuss certain situations in their life and, what kind of influences are around me that seem to bring up these things, that's a different story because it's really talking about your own behavior and how you tend to attract that to you based on what you're doing. But this is kind of like acting as if everything is engraved in stone and there's no personal responsibility or accountability that has to be engaged in. So, because the sun is the aspirational self, it's not surprising that Leos tend to gravitate towards positions of authority or leadership. And when a Leo person is well balanced, there's no greater leader because the fire element makes them magnanimous, meaning that they are very generous with their praise of others. They see the best in other people. But unfortunately, given the combination of the moon and Scorpio, that's going to tend to be a challenge. And that can come from past experiences, and that's what the moon is all about. The moon can actually be the mother and how she related to you, her basic personality. It doesn't have to be that that's her sun sign or her moon sign. It can just be how she acts towards you. If you are a female, she may see you as her rival. She may try to knock you down to size, cut you down to size through veiled insults. The lower nature of Scorpio is to be very, because Scorpio is very perceptive about human personality, that can be used as a weapon. And, we call those psyops or psychological operations, where the person can get inside somebody's head and really mess them up by knowing where their weak spots are and targeting them. And so in that scenario, you may have a mother, if you're a female, who is competing with you for male attention sometimes. If she hasn't had success in relationships and romantic relationships, and you get to the age of adolescence and she has a male companion who is looking at you instead of her, that can set off rage, or just knowing that you are very attractive. But sometimes this is simply because, and this could be either genders, that the person does not want to lose their child to independence. Sometimes a Scorpio person can try to make their, usually it would be like teenager, feel inadequate so that they don't separate from them, because they don't have, if the mother doesn't have her own life and she's kind of living, her whole identity is wrapped up in being a mother, and you're getting older and you're becoming more independent, she can become very destructive in that way. For the males, the mother may make the boy into her husband if she doesn't have a man in her life, and that is very destructive in its own right, because it can be very confusing. It's not necessarily incestuous literally, but it can be emotionally incestuous. And it's just a violation of another person's autonomy. No child should feel guilty for wanting independence when they get to be in their late teens, and they should not be treated like they're doing something wrong. And so the lower nature of that Scorpio energy can try to possess somebody, smother somebody to the highest degree possible. And that's not love. So if you have had this very intrusive presence, sometimes the person can replicate that. They can imitate what has been done to them with other people. As is true pretty much across the board as far as I'm concerned, a lot of people can become successful in the world even when they have certain challenging traits, and I'm talking about personality traits that are challenging, and yet in their private life, it can be a mess. And so even with this square that is formed by the sun and moon, the person may have success professionally. I do think that this combination, even though it's a hard angle, can produce success, because both of these signs are, well, I would say Leo is desiring excellence and accomplishment and recognition for that accomplishment, and Scorpio loves power and loves the powerful, loves to mingle among the powerful, and Leo loves the A-list. So this combination can try to ascend to those places where the, I was going to say the rich and famous, but also the accomplished hang out, and become one of them. You must resist trying to control others, especially when you're in a position where you can do this easily, whether it be in a work environment or as a parent. In those types of situations, you must resist that urge to try to lord over others. And because of the challenge from the emotional nature, the Leo person may feel very tempted to try to control things because the emotions may feel out of control. And that's something that we have to remember, is that people tend to control when they feel out of control. And we feel out of control when our emotions do not seem to be something that we can understand and therefore transcend. We feel like at the mercy of our emotions. That term that is so overused these days, triggered, is actually a true occurrence. There are times when people, because of past trauma, can find themselves in a similar situation, or like I would say, like a similar situation. And because of what they experienced before, they can immediately go into the same emotions that created in the past, even though as though they don't have control over it. And we always have control over how we respond to situations. We may not realize it in the moment, in the heat of the moment, but we do have control. And so Leos with this moon position must learn how to control their emotions. Also, I would say that fire signs are emotional, as are, of course, water signs like Scorpio. I'm a sun in Sagittarius. Aries is the other fire sign. They're not the same as water signs. There's more of an impersonal type of expression of emotion than the water signs, but you have the best of both worlds, and I'm saying that tongue in cheek. So you have to make sure that your emotions do not dominate you, that they do not dictate how you act. Meditation would be awesome for this combination. The other big thing that I see when I do either, like personal readings, or if I'm looking at famous people who have, it doesn't have to be the sun and moon combination. It can be like the Sun and Mars combination. If Scorpio and Leo are involved, is that the ego can get out of control very easily. Why does the ego get out of control very easily with this combination? First of all, Leo is ruled by the Sun. The Sun is our egoic self. The ego in and of itself is not a bad thing. It's not a narcissistic thing. At least in my definition, the ego is our personal identity in this incarnation. But we have to understand that we have an identity based on this particular lifetime that is not our ultimate identity. If you have the sun in Leo, your soul doesn't have the sun in Leo, just your egoic self in this lifetime. Having a sense of self, to me, is very important. It's almost like having a sense of your mission, having a sense of the talents that you bring to the game of life. If you are completely confused about what your mission is, what your purpose is, what you're good at, you're going to struggle quite a bit. And I'm not saying that I just was born knowing what I wanted to do, but a lot of fire signs do have a certain sense of self that they bring to life from an early age where they know who they are at a fundamental level. I do believe that. And I think that this is one of the reasons why fire signs get accused of being arrogant, narcissistic, or self-absorbed, is because they carry themselves in this is what I consider true confidence, is knowing who you are in this lifetime, but also knowing that you are spirit soul. That's the ultimate identity. So the moon is the conditioned responses, and the moon has a connection to karma because and actually, I think that's why it's connected to the mother, because the mother or the parent in general is a karmic relationship for sure. But the conditioned responses are also, to me, they can span lifetimes. You can have some of those same tendencies, maybe a tendency to be very insecure or a tendency to be arrogant. They can come from other lifetimes and just show up time and time again. But even if we just limit it to this lifetime, conditioned responses, it's like the robot being programmed based on experiences. And then you push a button and the robot goes off and does a certain action or has a certain reaction. So we have to be able to see that our emotions do not really give us a full understanding of what we're facing in reality. And the problem is that a lot of people are looking at the emotions to tell them, what is real. And so we have to be able to separate out these influences, in other words. When the person's emotional nature overtakes starts to run the show, then you will see it with your sun sign, and you will become more arrogant. You will become, because you will be more and more insecure. So that's why this square, it's a frustration, but it allows the person to be able to transcend it if they work on it. The problem is, this is one of the problems, is that sometimes people work on themselves to the point where that becomes part of their identity. I'm working on myself, because it allows them just to become more and more self-absorbed. And that's not what I mean. I'm talking about humble self-inquiry, where you're really wanting to get to the root cause of the conflict within yourself. This combination would be great for an actor or an actress, because even though it's a hard angle, that could elicit those difficult emotions like rage and extreme sadness, probably at the drop of a hat. And that could be very cathartic as well. Anything creative, this combination is very good for. In personal relationships, the person has to be careful about I was going to say the obsession with sex. It's not the Scorpio, though. It's the Leo. That's what I'm focused on. The person having the moon in Scorpio will naturally give the person a belief that sex is something that they really believe belongs to intimate relationships, not just frivolous affairs. Leo is one of those signs, because Leo rules the fifth house. The fifth house is actually the house of recreational sex. That's just one of the themes of the fifth house. The overarching theme is pleasure. And so, and also the fifth house can be conceiving children and love. And some of these things can get a little bit skewed, you know, conceiving children when it wasn't intended to. Um, Confusing love and sex, that can happen too. But with this combination, the person knows that they have an intense emotional nature and they might be very romantic, but they may have trust issues with the moon in Scorpio. And so you have to be very careful that you are not an obsessive lover, that you are not overly possessive, overly jealous, overly controlling with your significant other or just person that you're dating, because that can easily happen. Leo is one of those signs that is very attention getting. When you do find yourself in relationships, you may sometimes have an excessive sense of loyalty, even if the relationship is not a good one. So you have to be able to let go of relationships that aren't working out. And it's that double fixed energy that doesn't like change, even when it knows that it needs it. Okay, I think I'm going to leave it there. I hope that this resonated. If you would like a private reading, the link is below. Take care. Bye.